Has President Biden made a final decision about deploying more troops to Eastern Europe?
Well, let me give you a brief update, and I know that my colleague John Kirby is going to be briefing shortly in about 45 minutes or so at the Defense Department. We have been consulting with allies in deployments and refining plans for all scenarios. We've always said we would reinforce our allies on the eastern flank, and those conversations and discussions have certainly been part of what our national security officials have been discussing with their counterparts now for several weeks. In fact, we've never ruled out the option of providing additional assistance in advance of an invasion. Those discussions have been ongoing with our partners and Eastern Flank countries. And again, I would expect that my colleague John Kirby would have more of an update on where the process is at this point in time.
So John Kirby will make an announcement about whether or not he's made a decision?
No, I think he will provide an update on where things stand on those discussions.
Okay. So last week, President Biden at the press conference said that the U.S. would fortify NATO allies, but said it was dependent on an invasion, saying that if he would send more troops to Poland, Romania, if Putin did invade Ukraine. So the fact that he's considering this now and having these discussions with Pentagon leaders over the weekend, does that suggest that he believes an invasion is imminent?
We've never actually ruled out providing additional assistance to Eastern Flank countries in advance of any invasion. And those discussions with them have been ongoing, and certainly that's been part of our contingency planning.
I guess the question is, it does appear to be a shift in his thinking and his attitude toward it. Is that how you would characterize it?
I wouldn't characterize it that way. We have spoken to the fact that, and we've put out a lot of information about our view of the preparations being made by President Putin and the Russians. While we can't get into the mind of President Putin, we are seeing the preparations that they're making at the border. We have been very clear, and the President has been direct, that military action by Russia could come at any time. He said that last week as well. So we have been in conversations and discussions with Eastern Flank countries. Obviously, our Secretary of State just returned from a trip to Europe as well, and he was part of the discussions this weekend too. And part of that has been contingency planning and discussing what their needs have been.
My last question is, today the President has this call with European leaders. Several of them are on this: UK, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, NATO, the European Council. Why is Ukraine not on that call this afternoon?
Well, we have a range of conversations with Ukrainians. Obviously, our Secretary of State met with them last week, and they will be a part of many conversations moving forward. As I noted a little bit earlier, part of this is a discussion about deterrence and defense efforts, diplomacy, but certainly they will be a part of many conversations, as they have been from the beginning. Go ahead.
So what happened then in the last few days that prompted the Pentagon to present specific potential troop deployments to the President? Or put another way, why now?
Well, I wouldn't say we're characterizing it exactly that way. The President has said last week, and we also said that as we've been watching the preparations of President Putin and the Russians, that they were prepared at any moment to take military action. We've also been in ongoing discussions from our Secretary of State to members of our national security team with our Eastern Flank partners about what their needs are and what security concerns they have. So I wouldn't say it's a response to an abrupt moment. It's a part of an ongoing contingency planning process and discussion.
After this weekend, is he more or less concerned about the possibility of a Russian invasion of Ukraine?
Well, he said last week that military action by Russia could come at any time. That remains his point of view.
And there's been clamoring in this town and over in Ukraine for a U.S. ambassador to Ukraine. Where do things stand on appointing somebody?
Certainly understand that. I don't have any update on the status at this point in time.
The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry said the decision to draw down the U.S. presence in Kyiv at the embassy was, quote, premature and a manifestation of excess caution. Is this potentially the afterglow of what happened in Afghanistan, concern for that, or is something else more specific prompting people to leave?
Well, I would say that our State Department regularly reviews and assesses what steps need to be taken for the security of our personnel. I would note that the travel advisory was already at a level 4 since back in October. We've also been closely consulting and keeping Ukrainians abreast. I would say this is more akin to the steps we took in Ethiopia and Kazakhstan than any other country or conflict.
One more in Ukraine, and then one other quick subject. The House Speaker today has requested a bipartisan all-members briefing on the situation in Ukraine of the White House. Is that something you guys plan to fulfill?
We have been in close consultation with members and leadership from the beginning. I don't have any update on this specifically, but that's been our objective and how we have proceeded. So I'm sure we are working to meet the requests and needs of members.
And based on some news reports, it looks as if at least Jake Sullivan, maybe others, are talking to senior lawmakers about this on a fairly
And we have been
basis.
for weeks. Mm-hmm.
On another subject,